The termination papers landed on my desk with deliberate precision, their crisp edges aligned perfectly with the mahogany surface I'd selected myself when we first moved into this office 5 years ago. Effectively immediately, your POSITIONH is being eliminated. Victoria smirked, her newly manicured nails, paid for with the company credit card, no doubt, tapping against my desk. Jason and I agree you're not a good fit for NexTech's future. I kept my expression neutral as I studied the woman my husband had chosen over me. Victoria Stone, 32, MBA from Wharton, barely, and apparently qualified to be our new Chief Technology Officer, despite having never written a line of code in her life. Her qualifications seemed limited to her ability to seduce married men and her father's connections in venture capital. Jason and you, I repeated slowly, glancing at the patent documents tucked safely in my drawer. The ones for the neural interface technology that comprise 90% of NexTech's value. How thoughtful of you both to consider the company's future. She preened at what she mistook for acceptance. We knew you'd understand, Elise. After all, you're too smart to make this unpleasant. The severance package is generous, 6 months' salary and continued health benefits. More than fair for a, what was your title again? Technical consultant. Co-founder and Chief Innovation Officer, I corrected mildly, though we both knew she was perfectly aware of my position. The position I'd held since Jason and I started NexTech in our garage 8 years ago, back when he still believed in our dreams more than his own ego. Right, Victoria's smile was sharp as a blade. Well, that's all changing. Jason's restructuring to prepare for our Series C funding. McKenna Ventures is very interested, but they want to see strong leadership. Unified leadership. Unified, meaning Jason and his mistress, while the wife who developed every significant piece of technology got pushed out. Speaking of Jason, I said, reaching for my phone, shouldn't he be here for this conversation? Firing your co-founder seems like something the CEO should handle personally. Victoria's eyes glittered with malice. He thought it would be easier coming from me, less emotional. You know how he hates confrontation. Yes, I knew exactly how my husband of 10 years avoided anything uncomfortable. Like telling me about his affair. Like explaining why company funds were being diverted to a marketing consultant who never produced any campaigns. Like having the courage to face me himself instead of sending his mistress to do his dirty work. I see. I pulled the termination papers closer, pretending to read them while my mind raced through possibilities. And my equity. The lawyers will handle all that, Victoria said dismissively. Something about vesting schedules and buyback clauses. Very complicated. But don't worry, Jason wants to be fair. Fair, like when he'd insisted I put the patents under my personal name rather than the company's, claiming it would be better for tax purposes. I thought he was protecting our interests. Now I realized he'd simply been too lazy to handle the paperwork himself. I'll need time to review these documents, I said, standing slowly. And to transition my projects. Victoria's smile widened. Actually, security is waiting outside to escort you out. Company policy for terminated executives. I'm sure you understand. We've already backed up all your files and reassigned your projects to the new team I'm building. The new team. I wondered if she had any idea what she actually need to run the technology division of a neural interface company. Of course, I agreed, opening my desk drawer and pulling out a few personal items, including the slim folder containing copies of my patent certificates. I wouldn't want to violate company policy. As I packed my belongings into the cardboard box she thoughtfully provided, I noticed Jason hovering outside the glass walls of my office, too cowardly to even make eye contact. 8 years of partnership, 10 years of marriage reduced to him hiding behind a potted plant while his mistress dismantled my life. Oh, one more thing, Victoria said as I headed for the door. The company car needs to be returned by end of business today. And the corporate apartment, well, since that's Jason's primary residence now, you'll need to make other arrangements. I paused, genuinely curious. You're moving into the apartment? Next week, she confirmed with savage satisfaction. Jason thought it would be easier if you heard it from me. He really does care about your feelings, you know. 2 security guards waited outside, Marcus and Tommy, who I'd hired personally 3 years ago. They at least had the decency to look uncomfortable as they escorted me through the offices I'd designed, past the employees I'd recruited and mentored. I'm sorry, Dr. Morrison, Marcus whispered as we waited for the elevator. This isn't right. I patted his arm gently. Don't jeopardize your job for me. You have a family to feed. But I noticed several employees watching from their desks, expressions ranging from shock to anger, particularly my research team, brilliant minds I'd handpicked and nurtured. They knew what my leaving meant for their projects. In the parking garage, I loaded my single box into my personal car, a modest Tesla I'd bought before Jason insisted on German luxury vehicles as befitting our status. As I drove away from the building that had been my second home for 5 years, my phone buzzed with messages. Dr. Amit Patel, my lead neural engineer. This is insane. What do they expect us to do without you? Sarah Kim, our youngest PhD. Please tell me you have a plan. We all know who really runs the tech side. And most surprisingly, Robert McKenna from McKenna Ventures heard about NexTech's restructuring. Would love to discuss your next move. Coffee tomorrow. I ignored them all for now, driving instead to the small apartment I'd maintained near my elderly mother. Jason had mocked me for keeping it, calling it a waste of money. But I'd insisted, claiming I needed somewhere quiet to think. Really, I kept it because some part of me had always known this day might come. That evening, I sat at my simple kitchen table with a glass of wine and my laptop, finally allowing myself to process the full scope of what had happened. An email from NexTech's legal team confirmed Victoria's claims. They were invoking a buyback clause for my 30% equity stake, offering a price that would have seemed generous if you didn't know the company's true value. What they didn't know, what Jason had clearly forgotten in his eagerness to move forward with Victoria, was that I'd never signed the intellectual property assignment agreements for my latest patents, the ones for the breakthrough neural mapping algorithm that made our entire platform possible, the ones that our competitors would kill to license. My phone rang. Jason, finally finding his courage after letting me stew for 6 hours. Elise, he began, his voice artificially warm. I hope you understand this is just business. Victoria has connections we need, and... Jason, I interrupted calmly. Do you remember the Neuralink 3.0 presentation for McKenna Ventures next week? Of course. Victoria's handling it now. She's very confident. I'm sure she is. Tell me, has she reviewed the technical specifications? The live demonstration we promised? A pause. She said she's got it covered. Your team is supporting her. My team, who knew perfectly well that the demonstration required my personal authorization codes to access the neural mapping system. Codes I'd changed monthly for security purposes, codes I'd updated just yesterday. That's wonderful, I said sweetly. I'm sure it will go perfectly. By the way, you might want to have legal review the patent assignments for the core technology, just to make sure everything is properly transferred. What are you talking about? His voice sharpened. All company IP belongs to NexTech. All IP developed under employment agreements, yes, but you insisted I file the neural mapping patents independently, remember? For tax purposes, I have the emails where you specifically directed me to keep them in my name. The silence stretched so long, I wondered if he'd hung up. You wouldn't, he finally said. You wouldn't destroy the company out of spite. Destroy it? I'm going to save it. I took a sip of wine, savoring the moment. From itself. Have a good evening, Jason. Give Victoria my regards. I hung up before he could respond, then turned off my phone. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and threats and negotiations. But tonight, I had work to do. I opened my laptop and began drafting an email to my research team, using personal addresses I'd memorized long ago. The subject line was simple, regarding next week's demo and beyond. By morning, I had 17 responses. Every single member of my team expressing frustration with the new management and interest in whatever comes next. Amit was particularly direct. We all know who holds the real keys to this technology. Just say where and when. I scheduled meetings with 3 venture capital firms for the following week, deliberately timing them for the same day as NexTech's crucial presentation to McKenna Ventures. Robert McKenna himself had already confirmed he'd make time for me. On the day of the presentation, I sat in McKenna Ventures' waiting room, scrolling through increasingly frantic texts from Jason. The demo isn't working. Your team says they need authorization codes. This is sabotage. You're destroying everything we built. Please, Elise, at least think about the employees. Finally, my favorite, Victoria says she can fix it. She just needs the patent documentation. I was still smiling when Robert McKenna emerged from the conference room where NexTech's presentation had apparently imploded spectacularly. Dr. Morrison, he greeted me warmly. I hear you might have some interesting technology to discuss. I do, I confirmed, standing to shake his hand. Neural mapping algorithms that make current interfaces look like stone tools. And I have some ideas about the team to develop them. His eyes sharpened with interest. Your non-compete? Only applies to employment with competitors. Nothing about starting my own venture. Jason was very specific about keeping those terms narrow. He didn't want to limit his own options if things didn't work out. Poetic justice, McKenna murmured. Shall we? The meeting went better than I could have hoped. McKenna had done his homework, understanding not just the technology but the dynamics at play. By the end, we had a handshake agreement for seed funding that dwarfed what NexTech was seeking. One question he set as we concluded. Why didn't you fight to stay? With your patents, you could have forced their hand. I considered the question carefully, because they showed me who they really were. Jason chose the easy path, flashy connections over solid innovation. Victoria thinks she can run a tech company on charm and an MBA. They deserve each other, and they deserve what's coming. Which is? Reality. You can't run a neural interface company without understanding neural interfaces. You can't lead a research team you don't respect. And you can't build a future on technology you don't own. McKenna smiled. When do you plan to tell them about the patents? My lawyer is sending the cease and desist letter this afternoon. They have 30 days to stop using my technology or negotiate a licensing agreement. And if they refuse? Then I'll see them in court while I build something better with the team that actually created the technology in the first place. 2 weeks later, the tech press exploded with the news. NexTech co-founder launches rival startup, claims core patent rights. The articles were carefully neutral, but the industry knew what it meant. Without my neural mapping algorithms, NexTech was just another company with big dreams and no way to achieve them. Jason called me repeatedly. I finally answered on the 5th attempt. $30 million, he said without preamble. For the patents and your agreement not to compete. No. $50 million. Jason, you don't have $50 million. You barely have $5 million in runway. And that's if McKenna doesn't pull out entirely, which I hear he's considering. This is my company. The composure finally cracked. We built this together. We did. I agreed. And then you chose to destroy it for a younger woman with connected daddy. How's that working out, by the way? Victoria is, overwhelmed? Out of her depth? Hemorrhaging talent because she treats engineers like replaceable cogs. I'd heard all the stories from my former team, most of whom had already submitted resignations. Who could have predicted that? Please. His voice broke. I made a mistake. We can fix this. Come back. I'll make you CTO, give you full control of technology. Victoria can focus on operations. Victoria, I interrupted, is the woman you chose over me. The woman you sent to fire me. The woman who tried to steal my life's work. There's no coming back from that. Then license the patents. Fair terms, we can coexist. I thought about it. Not because I needed the money, McKenna's funding was more than sufficient, but because despite everything, I didn't want to destroy the employees who'd stayed loyal to the company. I'll consider it, I said finally. Have your lawyers send a proposal. But Jason, the terms will reflect market value. No discounts for old time's sake. The licensing agreement took 3 months to negotiate. By then, I launched MindBridge Technologies with my core team and several new additions. Victoria had lasted exactly 90 days as CTO before being quietly transitioned to a strategic advisor role. Corporate speak for please stop breaking things. The industry watched with fascination as NexTech struggled to maintain relevance while paying hefty licensing fees to the company their co-founder had been forced to create. Meanwhile, MindBridge soared, unencumbered by the dysfunction and ego that had infected my former company. A year later, I stood before a packed auditorium at the Neural Interface Conference, presenting MindBridge's breakthrough in consciousness mapping. In the audience, I spotted Jason and Victoria sitting separately. Their body language told the whole story. The affair that had cost so much had burned out as quickly as it had ignited. After my presentation, Jason approached me during the networking reception. He looked older, worn down by the weight of his choices. "Congratulations," he said quietly. "The consciousness mapping. It's revolutionary." "Thank you." I kept my tone professional. "How's NexTech?" "Surviving." "Barely. The board is pressuring me to sell." "I'm sorry to hear that." And I was in a way, not for Jason, but for what we've once built together. "I'm sorry too," he said suddenly. "For everything. I threw away the best thing in my life for, I don't even know what. My ego. A midlife crisis. The thrill of something new." "It doesn't matter now," I said gently. "We've both moved on." "You have," he corrected. "I'm stuck in the wreckage of my own making." I didn't disagree. There was nothing left to say. As I turned to leave, he called after me. "The patent thing, keeping them in your name. Did you plan that? Did you know?" I looked back at him, this man I had once loved, who'd shared my dreams and then betrayed them. "I planned for possibility," I said honestly. "You taught me that actually. Always have a backup plan, Elise, remember." He laughed bitterly. "I never thought you'd need one for me." "Neither did I admitted. But here we are." I left him standing there, surrounded by the success he'd thrown away. Victoria found me later by the bar, her designer dress and perfect makeup unable to hide the desperation in her eyes. "I know you hate me," she began without preamble. "But I need a job. Any job. My reputation is," she gestured helplessly. "Destroyed?" I supplied. "Because you tried to run a technology company without understanding technology." She flinched but nodded. "I was arrogant. Stupid. I thought connections and an MBA were enough. I thought," she paused, then continued more quietly, "I thought taking your place would make me important. Instead, I just proved how irreplaceable you were." It would have been easy to gloat, to twist the knife a little deeper. But looking at her, really looking, I saw someone who learned a painful lesson about competence versus confidence. "I can't hire you," I said firmly. "That would be inappropriate for everyone involved." But I pulled out a business card. "This is Dr. Sarah Kim. She's launching an educational startup focused on business training for technical industries. She might have a place for someone who's learned the hard way why it matters." Victoria took the card with trembling fingers. "Why would you help me?" "I'm not," I clarified. "I'm helping Sarah. If she decides you have something to offer, that's her choice. But Victoria, don't waste the opportunity. You might not get another." As the conference wound down, I found myself on the rooftop terrace, looking out over the city lights. My phone buzzed with congratulations from colleagues, investors, and employees. MindBridge was valued at 10 times what NexTech had ever been worth. We were changing the world, one neural connection at a time. "Penny, for your thoughts?" I turned to find Amit, my lead engineer and now CTO, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "Just thinking about paths not taken," I said, accepting the glass. "Any regrets?" I considered the question. If Jason hadn't betrayed me, if Victoria hadn't forced me out, would I have eventually left anyway? Would I have found the courage to build something entirely my own? "No," I said finally, "no regrets. Every path led here, to this moment, to what we're building. Even the painful ones." "To painful paths and beautiful destinations," Amit toasted. We clinked glasses as the city sparkled below us. Somewhere down there, Jason was probably still trying to salvage NexTech, and Victoria was hopefully calling Sarah about a second chance. But up here, surrounded by the team that had believed in me when I'd lost everything, I felt only gratitude. They thought they were eliminating me as competition. Instead, they freed me to become something far more powerful, myself, uncompromised and unlimited. The patent had saved my technology, but losing everything else had saved me. And in the end, that was worth more than any company valuation or licensing deal. As I looked toward the future, I knew one thing for certain. The best revenge wasn't destroying those who'd wronged you. It was building something so magnificent that their betrayal became nothing more than a footnote in your success story. And my story, it was just getting started.